Side projects, what are the things to be cool and relative to have purpose? When my side projects change based on kind of the stages of my life. And, at this point, I was creating monsters to kind of impress my kids. So creating these characters and then stories around those characters. And then that led me to a different type of writing and then taking different type of classes and workshops and whatnot. But, really, everything I do is really to, create solutions for things. And, when people say, what do you classify yourself? I definitely say a designer, but I think everyone is really a designer. Anyone that's trying to solve a problem or creating something, or even, help manage certain things, I'll always classify them as a designer as well. This is the empathy, the monster movement. What is empathy? So empathy is being aware of others, right? It's understanding how other people feel. It's essentially putting yourself into someone else's shoes and then understand them and be able to share another person's expression, needs, or motivation. Does anyone have an example of empathy in their life that they'd like to share? It's okay if not, but if anyone wants to speak up, that'd be appreciated.
Folks,
I can, yeah, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I can share simply the moment of going to the grocery store and then seeing people with masks and those like keeping distance and being aware that your perspective about the pandemic could be different from others, and then respect also their choice and be very conscious about some physical artifact that I decide personally not to wear sometimes, and then, oh, I should do it because this is important for them. So this is only one example.
That's a great example. You put yourself into somebody else's shoes and you try to understand why. So if somebody failed at a test, but they studied hard, and instead of saying, oh, sorry, you say, I understand you studied hard and should have passed. And then how would you guys think that this empathy applies to design process? And it's okay if no one wants to speak up, but thinking about anyone that's accessing your site or application or whatever it might be, thinking about who they are, right? So what kind of day they have, how often they might use a system, what is their mood typically when they might do this. Is it something that is just a task that is something annoying to them, or something that they just have to do but they really don't want to? So all these things play into kind of that process of empathy. You really want to make sure you understand somebody's motivations and needs and goals. So in your design process, really trying to understand what those frustrations could be, the abilities of the people that might be using the software, their limitations from skill sets or technology, whatever it might be, and then the reasoning and goals of those people. So when you're building systems, really thinking about those type of things to move forward. Another part of empathy, and another part of making sure that you are important to others and understanding of others is biases and assumptions. So those things I kind of combined because they both prevent people from being open-minded and cause problem during ideation and brainstorming sessions. But the difference between bias and assumption is a bias occurs when a person displays prejudice against someone, or something, or an idea. Assumption is when someone takes something for granted without evidence. Does anyone have any examples of bias or assumptions?
I guess some race, gender, age could be some biases about, for example, how these people may or may not use a service.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, and even like politics today, if you like a certain group versus the other, you're going to have biases the way you listen and interact with the other party versus the party you prefer. Sometimes that's extreme, sometimes it's not. How would bias apply or assumptions apply to the design process? So you know, one of the biggest things. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I always say, know who your client is. Don't assume who your client is. And what I always tell a lot of my designers, you know, art is for yourself, design is for the client. So you need to understand who the client is, who your target audience is. Don't go in and think, I would like this or I wouldn't like that. Make sure you take the time to get all of your details together for that client or the brief.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, and you know, another thing, like context really affects our judgment. So you know, the way something might be perceived. If you see a piece of clothing on sale for $100 or a piece of clothing next to it that was $100 with marked down from $400, even though it's the same, you know, piece of clothing, you're going to have some sort of, you know, bias towards that because you might think it's better. Another thing, you know, and you know, thinking of what bias is, you know, our brain has so many things to decide in a day, you know, a million different decisions to make. So most of the time, and thankfully, it's running on autopilot. So it's making those decisions for you, but it does come into play where, you know, it puts you into certain arenas where maybe you should be more open-minded and thinking more outside the box. So discard existing biases and assumptions, you know, use empathy in your design process by taking the time to carry out user research, you know, absorb it into your thinking to guide your decision-making process, and squash pre-existing bias assumptions. So that is a huge part of empathy, is really understanding, you know, what biases and assumptions might be. The designer's code for empathy. You know, this is one thing that I think that, you know, you have a responsibility as a designer, you know, if you consider yourself a designer, is to, you know, making sure that you're aware and have empathy. So I do solemnness, where to use my empathy skills only for good. I will do my best to look deeper into situations in a way that helps me identify with the user in order to create an unbiased solution. I will do my best to alleviate any disconnections between myself as the designer and the user with whom I'm empathizing. So what does that statement, you know, mean to you after hearing that and seeing it?
It reminds me to those who use research to weaponize whatever, like alter a bit the findings to show only part of the evidence and then guide a particular solution they had already in the back of their head.
That's great. Yeah, that's a great example. Thank you. You know, even outside of a project, a designer should be able to debate well. Is that a superpower? And for me, it's one of those things that, you know, I think if you do this on a daily basis where you're thinking of others and how people would react or, you know, use a system or what their day's like, it allows you to be, you know, a better person to debate different topics. Because you're thinking right now, oh, I can understand that viewpoint from even somebody that might have a completely different viewpoint than you, really trying to put your shoes into their shoes, or put yourself into their shoes. So I think it is a superpower, and I think that's one of the things that, you know, a good designer could really, you know, do that and use that in their day-to-day life as well. But what might make that challenging? You know, what might make, you know, debating somebody or trying to put yourself into somebody else's shoes challenging? And I think, Eduardo, you touched on it there for a minute. It's, you know, thinking about things that are touchy, or, you know, family, politics, these things that, you know, you might understand somebody else's opinion, but it's really tough to put yourself into their shoes. Does anyone else have an example of something that might be challenging for that? That's okay.
A lot of clients have, you try not to tell them to their face, they have bad ideas, but you have to give the client what they want and then come back and show them what they need. So obviously show them first, this is exactly what you asked for, but have you thought about this? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But I always tell, I've had a lot of designers come up to me and say they know it's a bad idea. They don't agree even with their direct supervisor. They don't agree with their direction they've been given, but you have to give who your superior is or the client what they want. And then always, if you have time, show them another idea.
That's great advice. Yeah. I mean, and I think, the more you kind of think like this, the more you realize there's many ways to do one thing. So there's not always the only way or the right way. It's, there's many options to do the same thing and to do it successfully. But options are key to that, figuring out, in Casey's point, who the client is, making them understand the point versus kind of forcing it down their throats. Cool. One nice thing about empathy, though, is it can be taught. I don't know. Sometimes it's a struggle, and some people might be completely immune to it, but it is possible to be taught. Listening closely, is a key. Observing behaviors, how people react, and you can see this from testing software or to people's reactions over conversations. I'm just paying attention to how people react to certain things. Be humble. So, get out of your own way, celebrate others and be humble. Ask questions. I think asking questions is key to anything you do. So, always ask questions about everything that shows that you're interested, as well as you will learn something new. And do your best to understand. So, even though it's something that you might not agree with, try to understand, because that's going to make you a better designer and a better person down the road. Talking about side projects, I have a thing for us to do kind of that revolves around creating a monster, right? So this is going to be the what. So like, what is a character? What is its name? And then what does it do that's perceived as bad? So just the what, not the why. So Carol put a link in the chat. If you can go over to that link, you can start this part. Let me put it back in the chat in case it's still not there. Oh, great. Thanks, Carol. So if everyone could go click on that link and jump into the Miro board with me, we're going to start an exercise. So the first part of this exercise, as you can see, Carol did here, is find a board. So there's 100 boards here. So pick one board. I don't know how many people are in the call. So maybe stick to the top 2 boards for now. So 1 or 49. And then put your name at the top of the board. So you can see at the very top here, put your name. So own your board. Great. Perfect. Yep. So go ahead and type your name in there. So there's 2 names too. So one is a name for yourself, who you are. Another one's going to be the monster that you're creating. So again, think about, what kind of monster, you want to create, and there's some rules over to the left too, if you scale over there, but you want to create the physical features of the character and what the character does that is bad. An example would be like Lava Man. He is orange and covered in bumps with sharp teeth, and he spews lava all over the city, destroying homes and cars. So choose a square and put your name above it, and then put the character's name. And then we're going to work on creating a monster using, Miro, where we can draw things, or you can take some monster parts and start creating your own as well. All right, great. Okay, so we got some people started. So again, put your name at the top of the board where it says your name, and then the character name. And then below we can work on descriptions as well. don't, yeah, so on the left of Miro application, you can also see that there's a pen tool that you can use. And within the pen tool, there's different weights you can use and different styles that you can use. And you can also choose different colors.
Hey Todd, some of them are having a difficulty finding a board. Could you maybe just
Yeah, so if you hit,
give instructions?
sure, if you zoom, so in the bottom right of Miro, you can see there's a percentage. So you might want to zoom out a little bit. So if you go to 10%, you could probably see a board, or depending on kind of where you're at. Let me see where you're at on the board.
Or maybe just clicking on the chat, huh? If you didn't click on the link yet.
Right. Oh, yes. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. So make sure you're in the Miro board to actually see this. Great. So again, what is your character's name? And then, your name, and then we're going to create a character. So whatever kind of character you want to create, and then we're going to create a description of that character, of the what it does that is bad. So again, I'd use my name, Todd Rice. My character's name is Lava Man. I would create a lava monster, and what he does is bad, is he spews lava all over town. And that's just a generic example. It can be, whatever you want it to be. It's your own monster. Is anyone else having any issues accessing anything or moving around? All right, we got some good monsters going on. Let's see what we got. Flubber, I like Flubber. And again, don't be afraid to use the different shapes or tools that Miro has. It's a very diverse program. Has some really cool features to it. And if you're just joining us, again, grab a board. There's a link in the chat window, and create, add your name to the top of the board, and then a character name, and then design a character, and then below it, provide a description of what the character does that is bad. So we got Flubber. He rushes to solution-oriented insights. Does the shallow research work on secondary research? I like that. I like that one. Very career focused. I like that. ZL, your monster's looking cool. The bad breath monster. Mod. That happens, Ooh, I like that. So again, trying to make sure you give a character name, your name, and then a description below of what your monster does. That is bad. Carol, I like your creative monster. You have to give it a name. The imposter. Very cool. And if you're having trouble grabbing any of the monster parts, if you zoom in a little more, you can see that you can grab them. If you're zoomed out too far, sometimes it'll just grab a piece of it and then you cannot move it. The big blue ball, I like that. Sabrina, the big blue wow. Nice. Wide mouth, yes. Skippy, that makes sense. Sticky fingers, right? Marina, you got something started there. You got loud mouth, I like that. Keeps on speaking all the time about how to do everything. It sometimes comes with very smart and arrogant. I like that. The K, the smiley monster. Overly optimistic. Just want you to be happy all the time. Yeah, that's perfect. These are great. And again, you know, the key, one of the keys is definitely putting the description there. That's going to be part of the second part of this. These are all questions with questions. That makes total sense, you know? Force hugs on Skippy, you know? Does not ask for permission. That is definitely a monster, especially with these times. Swipes designs in the night and doesn't give credit to the team. That's sticky fingers. I like that.
Wow, everyone's monster looks so cool. Who is creating mine? Why am I so abstract?
Yeah, I thought that was you, Carol.
Okay.
I know, that's good. Somebody, yeah, somebody can take credit for it though. Again, yeah, so make sure we get a description in there and then the name of the monster as well. Is anyone having any issues?
I think we have most
Is there a
attended.
way to flip the image?
I'm sorry, what was that?
Is there a way to flip an image? To do the horizontal flip?
Yeah, you can flip it by oh, whoops, sorry. Yeah. Oh, I guess you can't flip. You can flip it by turning it, so that's the only way. And there's some directions there, so if you want to rotate it, it's the only option. There we go. So the fickle-minded monster. I like that. So again, don't forget to give your monster a name and then a description if you can. How's everyone feeling about their monsters right now? Oh, Olivia, I like your concept. It's the opposite of the huggy monster. I like the tentacles. That's cool.
I'm sorry, are you talking to me, Livia?
Yeah. I like your concept, the Corona monster.
Yes, but did I get it all wrong because I was listening from the cell phone and then I changed it to the laptop, so I don't know if I'm doing it correctly.
You're doing it perfectly. Yeah. So basically,
Okay.
identifying what your monster is and then creating a description for it. So.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, we'll give everyone a few more minutes. So, please have a character name and a description. Beat the Monday Blues. I like it. All right, so who's the last person? Okay. So number 61, you're the last person in the row. So again, if you guys can put your character name and just a brief description of what it does that makes it bad. That's kind of the key to this interactive demo. I am Snow Monster. I like it. What does Snow Monster do that's bad? Okay. Dismiss. I like that. Dismisses all suggestions and ideas. That's a great one. Okay, so if everyone is okay with their monsters, the next part of this, kind of ties to, what are the things that I did, to be kind of relevant in some of the side project I worked on. I started telling stories to my kids, and then that led to writing short stories, which led into me taking classes and workshops. And one of the things I noticed through throughout these workshops was the amount of time that people talked about the antagonist of the story. So not the protagonist, but the antagonist. And how much time they spent on building that character, even though they might not go that deep into the character, they would still have this crazy backstory about, you know, why he's bad. So for me, anytime I see the word, you know, bad, I think of bad. If I think of antagonist, I think there might be a reason that it's bad. So what we want to do next is go to the character you're right. If you're the very last person, which I think it was number 61, you go to the number 1 spot. But I want you to kind of defend why that character is bad. So look at what the character is. Hopefully there's a description and a name, and then try to show empathy. So why is the character disliked by the majority? What is his backstory? How could you help change the character's actions that are perceived? So, you know, figuring out like the lava monster example, you know, he's not bad because, you know, he's spewing lava all over town. He actually just ate some shellfish and he's allergic to it. So he's spewing this. And again, that's a really generic example, but, you know, look at the person to your right, and then grab a sticky note from the area below the monster parts tips, or you can use Miro's side panel to grab a sticky note and then go ahead and place it on the one to your right, and then try to create a description or an empathetic viewpoint on why the character is only being perceived as bad, but he's actually not bad. So grab a sticky note, go to the character to your right or the closest one, and whatever information you can take from that character, try to create a reason why this character is not bad, just being perceived that way. So again, you know, the description that somebody left, you know, he lacks in management and leans towards perfection. That's what makes him look bad. But why does he do that? So this is the why part of everything. So the what character is, you know, what the name is, what it looks like, what it does to be perceived as bad, and this is the why. So taking an empathetic viewpoint of the why part of that. That's perfect. Right. Procrastination is the power. It turns everyone crazy. But things just happen at home. That's why he is perceived that way. And I'm not sure who commented. Brain Fuzz commented on Livia's, and he just wants people to have some healthy alone time. That's why he created the isolated home Corona monster. Perfect. Left eye. Beat the Monday blues with big blue blob, a little badass with boots of boo-hoos. But the boo-hoos are actually just energy that comes to you without realizing it, and it's connected to the clouds and makes it rain anytime. Interesting. I like that. So wide mouth is round and short and bald. Yep. He speaks a lot all the time. What he says, she says makes no sense, but it's good at confusing people. Can get under your skin and make you lose your temper. So why? Secretly a tomato and loves being healthy. I like that. Makes sense. Perfect. All right, we got Skippy's over here. Skippy appears to be smart and friendly at first glance, but has a tendency to enforce hugs on you. He does not ask for permission or consent to hug. He likes to hug because he's lonely and he needs validation. He does not ask for permission because he doesn't have a platform. I like that. I like that.
I would just like to identify that Skippy identifies as they, them,
Yes.
which I've noted next to the name,
Perfect.
just to make that clear.
That is perfect. They, them. I love it. Yes. They and them. Yeah. All right. Does anyone want to talk about their monster?
Talk about the monster or the feedback they gave for the person to the right.
Either one. What number are you, Casey?
17.
So 17, your character. Oh, yes, that's right. Sprites of designs that it doesn't give credit to anyone on the team. All right, sticky fingers, I like that. And then the person next to you is Mr. and Miss Information.
Right.
Yeah. Why don't you talk about that one real quick?
I said this person, give my feedback. This person is an influencer.
Mm-hmm.
And they should be using the power for good. This also gives the opportunity for who this person disrupts to have the meeting before the meeting and try and sync with this person to see what bad idea they're going to push and try and put some good in there to make sure you're not caught off guard when he reinforces these bad ideas. Try and use some of it for good.
Nice. Yes. That's good. Does
You
anyone
want me
else
to
want
talk
to talk?
about sticky fingers to the
Sure,
left?
yeah, please.
Sticky fingers, what I didn't add in here is this is the person that always agrees with whoever's in the room. The person always shaking their head, yes, yes, yes. And then always comes up with an idea or presents an idea that wasn't their own. And then you're caught off guard when they say they went with direction A or B and you didn't get any of the credit. So one of the things I always try and do, probably to a fault, is give whoever came up with the design, even if it's just the side they didn't come up with the full design, is to make sure I give the team credit.
Yeah, and that is definitely the leader's job, is to make sure the credit goes where it deserves, and also set them up where they can succeed themselves. Anyone else want to talk about their description or the monster that they created? These are great, though. So let's see, we have the fickle-minded monster, and it always make a decision based on their own ideas without knowing the end user, and expect to be brilliant, and then they end up not as expected. That is true. So making sure you do your research. So why is he not bad? That's close. Yeah, maybe you can expand on that example a little bit. We have the caffeine crazy monster. Oh, it's procrastination is the power and turns everyone crazy to meet deadlines last minute. I think I know who that is. But let's see, why is he okay? Things just happen at home. He needs to juggle when household chores, lessons, last minute, and team mishaps. Remains committed to meet the deadline. So there you go. He's not so bad after all. This is great. Stone Man observes more, talks less, pre-prepared for every meeting, lacks in time management as leans towards perfection. So that's his description. I like that. But he's lazy, who never really had a work which has time management as part of the job, but just something from art. Perfection comes from many failures, so let's not compromise too much on time, but on testing and feedback. Yes, that is very good and very applicable to our conversation. All right, we have Flubber. We have some notes on that. Again, Flubber is rushes to solution-oriented insights, does a shallow research work, worse than secondary research, talks more, listens less, reflects on what they talk about and not what they don't feel. Works alone, works on assumptions. This monster is actually trying to avoid the situation of too many cooks spoil the broth. He possesses solution orientation mindset. He's trying to adapt to the human behavior aspect of his problem solving skills. That's very good and relevant. Awesome. And you know, like, again, this is a presentation really to have fun, kind of think differently. So I can definitely share this with you guys, the presentation and board. But it's one of those things, just to take time for yourself, take a step back and think about things in a different manner. It's always good for your team or whoever you're with to kind of have fun, but still try to learn something at the same time. So if you ever see an imposter or a flubber or a stone man out there, they might not be bad people. They're just, misunderstood. So, use empathy to try to understand where they're coming from. All right. So yeah, if you guys are done with your monster, you can kind of scroll around, see who else, has some cool monsters in here. And does anyone else want to talk about their monster? I like the snowman response. That's great. Number 58. That's hilarious. All right, so we have only a little bit of time left. Does anyone have any questions or any other topics we'd like to talk about, or look at different monsters or anything of that nature? Oh, I like that one. I didn't see that. Morning mope. Mope needs coffee.
I really like this exercise, especially when you're meeting new teams. So everyone can kind of even just explain who they are. Like, what's your monster, or who's your secret person inside that no one knows about? And it will break the ice. Instead of doing one truth and two truths and a lie, or just like go around and warm things up. Can't say it right, but I like this. It's just something a little different.
Yeah, and Miro is such an amazing tool. The refresh rate on it, I mean, all the different possibilities. If you look at, if you're not familiar with Miro, You can do presentations with it. It has chat, video conferencing. You can do polls here as well as like templates, things of that nature. And yeah, this is my third time to kind of do this type of exercise. Before, I would just really have people draw characters with the tools of Miro, but I saw that Nina Todd kind of did a workshop with Icebreaker with monster parts, so I created my own monster parts and integrated here. But I did give her a shout out over here underneath the monster parts and tips. Also, yeah, so, and if this is your first time being, familiar with the Undistancing project, they have a lot of different talks coming up, and it's for a good cause. Again, it's free, but you can donate to any of the causes that are listed in the bottom left of the presentation.
Thank you so much, Todd. What a fun workshop.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you. I appreciate you guys coming. Spending time creating monsters and being silly.